everybody, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ&A video here on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. Before we get started, let me give a special shout out to the legendary Mike B, who is the reigning and defending NoDQ Super Chat champion. If you are watching the YouTube premiere of this Q&A, feel free to leave a super chat. The single biggest one during the premiere will lead you to become the next Super Chat champion. I appreciate everyone's viewership and support. With that being said, let's get started with your questions. This question comes from Zane Johnson, the Schlock. Hey Aaron, what do you think about WWE having a second domestic developmental brand to give their newer talent more exposure, like a brand split but for developmental? I would be okay with the idea if there wasn't already an NXT UK. Now, with the current pandemic, I would not expand anymore for the time being. I think with the way things are right now, it's best to just keep focused on what already exists. Now, once things start getting back to normal, while I do like the idea, I just think there's too much already. If you're going to do something like that, then I would probably scrap NXT UK and just have two versions of NXT. You could always do something like that, but I think it's a tough sell, especially when NXT caters to a niche audience. I'm not sure if separating the NXT stars into two different brands would be a successful move long term in terms of viewership and in terms of fans just investing money into the brand. This question comes from Fahad. Why do you think Smackdown keeps changing its broadcast days, and which day do you think is the best for WWE to broadcast Smackdown? It keeps changing days depending on the network. It all comes down to what the network wants. In the case of Fox, Fox wanted Smackdown on Friday. That was Fox's call. Fox is paying WWE. WWE will do whatever night Fox wants. Now, as far as which day is the best, I think Friday night is not the best night in terms of getting people to tune in. People like to go out and do things on Friday nights, at least before the pandemic. However, I think the one positive is that attendance is up, or at least was up before the pandemic. People tend to go out on Fridays, like I said, and with Friday Night Smackdown, it's a fun time. You go out Friday night, go to the wrestling show. WWE attendance did go up once WWE started running on Friday nights. It's a harder sell to go to an event on a Wednesday or Thursday night when people have work the next day or kids have school the next day. So depends on what the criteria is. I think as far as overall TV viewership, Tuesday night was really good. I think right after Monday night, and there's not a lot of competition on Tuesday night. Monday night you have football, and Friday night is just a bad night in general. Thursday night was not bad. Wednesday night's not bad. So it just depends on what your criteria is. This question comes from Rollins versus Styles again, please. I love that username. Hey Aaron, in your opinion, do you think Ric Flair had the greatest retirement match in WWE history? If not, who did? I will say this. I think Shawn Michaels, his retirement match with The Undertaker was better than Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair on a technical level. I think The Undertaker-Shawn Michaels match was superior in the ring. As far as the emotional investment, I would go with Ric Flair's retirement. Ric Flair retiring was quite the moment in WWE history. Shawn Michaels retiring was also a big deal. However, the thing with Shawn Michaels is that it's really hard to buy into the retirement stipulation when so many others before, including Ric Flair, came back. By the time we had Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, Ric Flair had already come out of retirement. He had already wrestled Hulk Hogan, and he was in TNA, so it's like, could you really buy into the idea that Shawn's really done? And as it turns out, Shawn did wrestle again. Granted, he stayed retired for 9 years, which is quite the feat in wrestling. But yeah, it's hard to get into the retirement stipulation. With Flair, at his age, I believed it. I bought it. And just the magnitude of him coming out there in the robe and Shawn crying and Rick crying, like, it was just a very emotional moment, and you really believed that Rick was done. But yeah, it's hard to say which one I would say was the better retirement. It just depends, again, on what your criteria is. This question comes from Jason Bush. Is it just me, or has Velveteen Dream lost a lot of momentum recently? It feels like fans used to view him as the next big thing in WWE. Now, not so much. Is it time for Dream to move to the main roster, or would you keep him in NXT? He lost to Adam Cole at the NXT TakeOver pay-per-view in your house. I think it's too soon for him to go to the main roster. He's only 24. The guy has a lot of years left, bearing any injuries or scandals. I think you should continue to build up Dream, and maybe eventually he wins the NXT World Title. It's obviously not going to be Adam Cole because of the stipulation, but I would keep him in NXT at least until we get the fans back. You know, I don't think there's a rush for Dream to go to the main roster. You already have Matt Riddle, Dominik Dijakovic, and a few other people that you can focus on for the time being. Save Velveteen Dream for a year or two until we have crowds again. But yeah, what do you do with the guy now? That's a tough question to answer when he's not going to be in the world title picture. Maybe you could put him back in there in a feud with Johnny Gargano. Maybe you could have him turn heel and feud with Keith Lee for the North American title. What do you guys think? Leave a comment either on NoDQ.com or YouTube and let me know what you think. This question comes from Vegeta Knows the Wrestlers. Hey Aaron, with Rhea Ripley not winning the NXT Women's Title, do you see her being the one who beats Bayley, or will it just be Charlotte again? I believe Charlotte is going to be feuding with Asuka on Raw, so I think that leaves Charlotte out now for the time being. As far as Bayley goes, I think it should be Sasha. Eventually, they get to that point. I don't know where Rhea Ripley stands. Much like Velveteen Dream, she feels like she's cooled off a little bit. And what do you do with her now? She rejected Robert Stone on NXT this past Wednesday. So I don't know what's next for her, but I would suspect she's going to stay in NXT for the time being. Maybe eventually she could go heel and go to Smackdown and feud with a babyface Sasha Banks. I would have Sasha be the one to beat Bayley. But at this time, anything's possible. Who knows? Maybe Rhea Ripley does go to SmackDown and defeats Bayley, and Sasha Banks is a factor in that, and then Bayley and Sasha feud not for the Women's Championship, but just because of their own personal issues. This question comes from Jerry Slaughter. With War Games now an NXT staple and the nostalgia heavy in your house, do you see the Black and Gold brand reviving any other dead pay-per-views? That's a great question, Jerry, and I'm sure WWE is considering all options. And you know Vince McMahon, you know Triple H, they will want to monetize the intellectual property as much as possible, especially Triple H. Vince might be stubborn about using WCW concepts, which is why War Games hasn't been featured on the main roster, but you gotta think Triple H is looking at the library from WCW and thinking, what old concept could we bring back? One that I personally would like to see is the triple cage from WCW, the 3-tier cage. They used it at Slamboree. I almost said Slammiversary. Slamboree 2000. And I think that was an underrated match. That was during a period when people were very down on WCW and the whole David Arquette winning the world title fiasco. But I enjoyed that concept of the 3-tier cage where you have the championship at the very top and they start at the bottom and work their way up. I thought it was cool. I would love to see it in NXT used as a Hell in a Cell style match to settle a score once and for all, like a final match of a feud, 3-tier cage, or even for the world title, putting the world title at the very top of the cage. So that would be one, and I'm sure there's other ones that I think could be fun to watch in NXT. What do you guys think? Leave a comment and let me know. That will wrap things up for this edition of No DQ&A video. Send me questions. Twitter.com/AaronRift using the hashtag PAIV. Please keep spreading the word. Tell a friend about NoDQ.com and stay tuned for the very latest wrestling news and rumors. I'll see you guys next time.